Hi guys. If you follow me at all, you know that I use black backgrounds a great deal in a lot of different designs. Everything from Christmas to my florals and even some just simple, fun, quick mixed media things. I use black a lot. Now, black can be boring, but it doesn't have to be. And you can make some spectacular black backgrounds that have lots of interest and visual textures and just in general something to really make for an exciting painted piece. So, I'm ready to get started. So I have a straightforward black background. I usually like to give it two coats simply because I want it fully black. I don't want to see any of the existing surface through it. And then you're going to grab a fistful of stamps. Now, in this case, I have this one. This is a set called Grunge from Stampendous, and I found a butterfly stamp. And this is also a Stampendous stamp. It's called the Vintage Note. Now, these ones are the ones that I like to use the most because they have lots of different textures, visual textures, and visual interest in them. The next thing you need is a small brayer. So I have a brayer. And then you need a palette and you need white paint. So I'm going to take that brayer and roll out some paint so that the brayer is well loaded up. And I'm going to load my stamp with the brayer. And then I'm going to stamp my surface. Just in a few spots, nothing perfect. It's more interesting if it's not. So I'm going to reload my brayer and choose a different stamp. Again, this one's got some script and some text in it. And I kind of like just sort of fitting these in wherever they'll go. That works nicely. And then I have this one. And I'm just using a variety of script stamps and text because I like that sort of movement in that it provides. See, I like that. And I have one here. This is Crackle. This one is an interesting one. Creates all sorts of interesting textures. So I'm going to tuck a little of that in here too. I'm thinking down here. Nope, maybe up here. There we go. Just a little bit here and there. I like it. And then I've got this great one. I love this one. This one's got all these great swirls and textures in it. So I'm going to tuck a little of that in. Now, neatness doesn't count for this. You don't have to worry about it being perfect. You don't have to worry about it being, absolutely lined up. It doesn't have to be perfectly clear. In fact, it's more interesting if it's not. And then I got a butterfly. I have to tuck a butterfly in. If you've got dragonflies or bumblebees or whatever you have, it doesn't really matter. Just tuck it in. It also doesn't matter if the image overlaps with anything. And then I have a canceled postage stamp. I'm going to load that up. Now I'm going to tuck a few of these in because I like this shape. I just find it interesting. Here, I think that's enough. Now, ordinarily you could leave this just white, but I find most of the time that just the plain white tends to be a little stark and a little harsh. So dry this real fast. So if you're using white and black, that is the highest possible contrast that you can have. So we want to bury this a little bit, subdue it a tiny bit so that it doesn't become the primary focus in the piece. So if I'm going to paint, say, a bright pink flower or something over on this side, I don't want all of this to become the focal point. So I want to subdue it just a little bit. So I'm going to dry that real quick. Now I'm going to use a little bit of asphaltum to bury this back just a little bit. It's going to do two things. There's the asphaltum. It's going to do two things for this piece. One, it's going to subdue that white a little bit. And two, it's going to warm up this black so that it doesn't look quite so cold, that it doesn't look quite so stark. So I'm using my fugly brush and lots of water because I want to thin this paint out. And I'm going to apply a wash of that asphaltum over top of all of that white. Now, I've had people say, well, couldn't you just use like a tan color or something for this? Yes, you could, but this accomplishes a bit more than just subduing the white. It warms up that black, kind of ages it a little bit, but it knocks all of this bright white back a step, which is what we need for this next step. So there I go. I've got a layer of that asphaltum on, and I'll dry that. This kind of gives black an aged appearance. It's nice and soft. It's subtle. It's not in your face. And when I take this tape off, I'm going to have what looks like a black frame around this aged image. So quickly dry this. It's never fast enough. So there, I have this nice, softly subdued, kind of takes some of that harshness out of that black. Gives you a nice warm feel. Now I want to bring a little bit of bling into this, and one of my favorite stencils for that is this postage stencil. I'm going to use that cancellation stamp, this one right here, and a little bit of 24 karat gold. Now I wanted to bring an element forward, so it leaves, once you paint something onto this, you're going to have 3 layers. You'll have that flower, you'll have this stencil, and then you'll have all of this further away. But I didn't want to use white on this because it would, again, be far brighter than anything else, and so it could come screaming out at you, and I don't want that. So I decided to go with a little bit of this bright gold. I'll check my stencil, and perfect. Now you could do this a couple of times. Because it's a fairly small space, it's only 8 by 8, I didn't want to overdo it, so I'm only going to use one of the canceled stamps, but I am going to use a portion of this other element in here just to bring a little more texture in, just like that. I kind of like that little bit there. And then maybe down here, I'll use the other half of this stamp. The nice part is if you don't really think about where you're placing these, you end up with a nice surprise, and it feels more organic when you decide to place your drawing onto it and start painting it. If part of this is hidden by the painted element or part of this is hidden by it, it just adds more depth and dimension to the surface. So that's it. That is a quick and easy black background. That's it. It's so much fun and it's so easy to do, and I can probably guarantee you've already got the supplies in your paint box. So try it out. Even on the simplest designs, this type of a background is very, very effective. Thanks for joining me. Love you. Stay safe.